Hello, hello. Welcome to Minds on Mushrooms, where we are unveiling the magic behind psychedelics for mental health and addiction. I'm your host, Maggie Kirkwood. Joining me today, we have Michou Olivera. You're coming in from the East Coast, right?
Yep.
Massachusetts. I wanted to thank you so much for your time. We were connected on LinkedIn, and I'm really excited just to kind of dive in. You wear many hats. You're a psychedelic facilitator, advisor, public speaker, mentor, writer, activist, and a mycologist, which I find I definitely want to touch base on that piece too. But yeah, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. With each guest, I really kind of like to just dive in and figure out how and why you are here in the psychedelic space and helping others to heal, grow, and expand. So up to you where you'd like to start.
A broad topic here. Really, the short answer to that is that I have about 7 years of experience of really reinventing my entire life from a place of pretty much rock bottom with alcohol, daily alcohol consumption for close to 40 years. Also, very excessive, compulsive behaviors to escape from what was difficult in my life, mostly being a woman who looks very masculine, very challenging path to live. Mushrooms found their way back to me in January of 2018. And I began a macrodosing journey, once a month macrodosing. I was facing a life crisis, and I was about to be homeless. I had just 2 months before, in November of 2017, catastrophically injured both of my shoulders, and I wasn't able to work. So I was facing imminent homelessness. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't make money the way that I always had, which was through, hands-on type of work, more construction-y based or labor type jobs. Mechanics, irrigation, through landscaping. I couldn't do any of these things. And I was very terrified at what I was supposed to do next. And mushrooms appeared in my life, back to my life, basically. After about 30 plus years of being gone, I took them for the first time in the 80s when I was a teenager. For fun with friends, go to see the Grateful Dead, and we would take mushrooms, we'd take LSD, we would take the things that were available to us at 15, 16 years old, and just go have a good time. And I felt that I probably would have kept using them if I would have had access to them in the 90s and 2000s as I continued compulsive alcohol and just running from what was challenging. I didn't understand a lot of aspects of my life, and there were no tools for understanding them. So drinking was the way out for me. And what I did was really just try to just manage myself, I feel, with the alcohol, just to try to suppress how much trauma I was experiencing and unresolved everything of my life. I didn't have any tools for anything. So really, at the end of the day, mushrooms kind of just appeared, I feel, in my life to help me with some ideas and some different ways of essentially showing up for myself that I had ever had before.
Wow.
And what I ended up doing was inadvertently becoming a student of the process. In January 2018, I took a macrodose of Golden Teachers. I took 3.5 grams with a friend. We had some time. We just had some fun laughs and looked at nature and kind of cruised around outside by the trees. And I really was connected to my heart in a way that I never had been as an adult. And it gave me grace in that period. And then the few following weeks of half-life afterwards were, for me, very expansive. The reason being is that I have been always my whole life a very in tune person, a lot of psychic awareness. And what mushroom did in that moment was really expand that aspect of my knowing. And for the weeks following, I felt incredibly enhanced at the ability to know more of what was going on, not just with myself, but with my surroundings.
Wow.
And so I started to pay attention to what was being presented to me in my life. And literally following, it was about 2 years of monthly macrodosing, I started to really put some pieces together and became a student of this process, and essentially devoted my life to what I was watching unfold. I had devoted my life to understanding what was happening to me. Um,
Wow.
7 months in of macrodosing, my alcohol addiction was just taken away from me. I woke up one morning and I felt the most profound sense of peace and
Mm.
wholeness that I felt in my life. I've already felt, I felt good enough. I didn't need to drink that day. And normally,
Wow.
I think about it, 9 in the morning. What am I going to drink that day? And what should I start? One,
Yeah.
two, who knows, right? I can't work. So obviously, it's going to be whenever I choose to
Hmm.
go away. And instead, that day was crystal clear. That morning, I laid in bed and I thought, you know what I really want to do today is have a nice lunch and take a nap.
Mm.
Don't drink today. Just take a day, time out. Let's not do that. Let's do something different. Let's self-care instead, which is
Self-care. Yes.
mine ever. So I stuck
Wow.
with that. Um, it's literally been, I mean, this story that I have is so, there's so many layers and levels in it. So it feels like I've lived 3 lifetimes in this last 7 years. So much,
Sure.
and so much about me has evolved and changed in ways that I never would have imagined. But long story short, essentially, in that time period, I had an awakening. I had a very mystical experience with visitation of 4 white light entities on just
Mm.
3.5 golden teachers. But after a year and a half of dosing, macrodosing once a month, I feel my neuroplasticity of my mind was at a very all-time high, and it allowed a deep dive into some really profound visual aspects and future casting of my future that
Wow.
I um, saw myself speaking in front of auditoriums of people. I saw myself working with people on mushrooms. I saw
Mm.
myself growing mushrooms. I saw all these things that I didn't at the time. I kind of was like, oh, interesting mushroom trip, whatever. But the
Yeah.
following, I was like, but what if those are real? What if that's actual future that I'm seeing? And I need to focus on following this path somehow and
Mm.
dedicate my life to this, what is unfolding here. So I believed that stuff. Basically, I invested 100
Wow.
all the way and literally started teaching myself mycology. What I realized was that these mushroom strains are different. There's different energies to them. And
Hmm.
as such, they're going to show up for people in ways that are either going to help or hinder where they're at. So
Hmm.
I found it very imperative to learn not just how to grow mushrooms, but to learn each type of mushroom that is common, that is popular, and find out how does it feel? What does it do? And then I was also told, basically shown, that people would be coming, right? I was
Mm.
shown collecting millions of people with these very grievous faces, hands outstretched, asking for help because they're desperate and they don't want to live like this anymore. Help
Wow.
me. Help.
Yeah.
Millions of this. And a reminder that, hey, they're going to come to you because you know a way of basically, there was no specific, the way of what's
Hmm.
been revealed over these last 7 years is I know the way of psychedelics and consciousness or
Hmm.
self-realization, right? And of connecting to the unintegrated aspects of our shadow self, and of also fostering the way of using your higher consciousness to reach a more divine
Sure.
state, right?
Yes. Well, okay. I have a few questions, and
Please go
wow,
away.
that is such a beautiful story, and I'm sure that there's more
Yeah.
further to be discussed. I wanted to, well, first of all, I relate in so many ways to your story. I was at a point where I was feeling hopeless, helpless with my alcohol consumption, and I did not, for the life of me, know, I couldn't talk to anybody. It was my little secret. And yes, thankfully, for me and my case, the mushrooms in a very short period of time were able to show me that I no longer need alcohol. In fact, it like switched this switch off in my brain where I ultimately realized how unhealthy my brain was due to drinking, and um, showed me it was pure poison for me and let me know that I would be safe, not ever consuming again, and using the mushrooms to, combat depression and all of these other things I had been living with without even really understanding how bad off I was. I wanted to talk about so you said it was about 7 months or so after kind of the mushrooms re-entered your life. and you literally just kind of woke up one day without the idea that, or you were saying self-care was what you decided to do that day. Have you remained sober and alcohol-free since?
No, and here's why. Because it didn't feel real to me, and I wanted to understand why and how. Because
Oh,
I
I
need to
see.
help people do this same thing. I
Hmm.
need a way, I need a process. So I
Okay.
put my back in after about a year. I took a year because it didn't feel like I wanted to drink. But over that span of a year, I started to realize that if I don't understand how this is working and
Hmm.
what it's actually giving me, how am I helping anybody else to achieve longevity in this space? Now, I
I
didn't
see.
want in. I wanted to understand how mushrooms took my addiction away from me. So I put myself back into drinking. About 2 months it took me. It took me 2 days to even drink without throwing up.
Oh,
But
wow.
I went back into drinking, and about 2 months of drinking regularly, it felt like I wanted to, oh, it was okay to drink again, but I knew in the back of my mind that I would never drink the way that I did before. I couldn't
Hmm.
drink, which is what I always had drank for close to 40 years. And I couldn't drink as much as I did before. I already knew that from a DNA standpoint, I wasn't connected to alcohol the same way.
I
This was
see.
for research. And so what I did 3 separate research experiments to find out how alcohol comes in, what it's showing you, what it's triggering within you, mostly shame, and how it works. And then took mushrooms purposely this time to quit my interest in alcohol. And I
Mm.
did what I did in 7 months, I did it in 2 months with macrodosing more frequently, essentially a macrodose every 2 weeks for two
Oh, wow.
months.
Oh, wow.
Took my
Okay.
addiction away. Then I went another year, didn't drink, didn't feel like I wanted to. But then some things came up in my life, and I was like, wait a minute. There's things that I was looking at and being shown in the last portion of my drinking because I have now higher consciousness from all the mushrooms. I'm seeing how the mechanism of addiction is working behind the scenes. So I went back into drinking from a way of more social, from a
Hmm.
place of going out, because I was by myself for all of my research. I was alone until the last one. Then I was married. I had a
Hmm.
wife, social. I had a relationship, all these things. So I started to look at bigger pieces of social consumption, cultural consumption, why our culture leans on alcohol as a substance of basically national support
Hmm.
and essentially propping up and encouraging, right? In all of the events that we attend, there's always alcohol. So I wanted to research understanding these pieces. And so I went and did another study. Now, 3 times I
Hmm.
have been removed of my alcohol interest through way of mushrooms. Uh,
Wow.
and so I mean, now how it works, because I've never set out to be a sober person, right? I don't need anything like I used to need anything. I don't lean on any substances anymore. On
Right.
occasion, to have an altered state, sometimes it's cannabis, sometimes it's a couple of drinks, but mostly I like to just be with Michou. I like to be myself in my
Well,
own vibe, in my own energy, right? So I've never, I mean, I think if some people need to be sober, then you need to be sober. I respect people's choices for what they need to do. But
sure.
I to sometimes venture into other realms of reality and of cognitive function because I am able to see in those places how my areas of opportunity are either growing, what's new, what's needs to be brought back up again and revisited, what's being offered to me as far as insight. For a certain window of time, certain people with high consciousness or high mysticism or high psychic ability are
Hmm.
able to see into their opportunities on a deeper level, right?
Wow. So,
So
a
yeah.
few questions there. So, in turn, with understanding your own addiction with alcohol and or what was behind it, I guess, are you currently working with many people who are trying to rid themselves with specifically alcohol?
I'm working with hundreds of people worldwide and have been for 5 years now.
Wow. Can I
And they,
ask just a few questions with that
these,
process? Do you, is it, so for me, when I essentially was microdosing, like I said, just a microdose, this was a half a gram for 5 days in a row, was enough to switch the flip, the alcohol switch in my brain is the best way to describe it. Are you working with these people in a capacity where you're working with them having larger doses or whatever first to understand the addiction, or is it like, we're going to help you have medicine so you can stop drinking this week?
It depends on the person. Everyone. So what I've come up with as far as theories are the way somebody is presenting with their trauma or with their challenges in life, like in the moment, depending upon what they're working with, the type of mushroom, the type of dose, all these things are part of my screening.
Okay.
And what is a series of protocols that I've invented of dosing based upon strength. Now, what I'm realizing as a prior alcoholic, what we like is to go out. As an alcoholic, we like to go somewhere else other than here.
Yes.
We're drunk, our vulnerability can come forth, right? We're feeling courage, we're feeling safe, basically, because we're not here really, but we kind of are. So with people that are alcoholics, what helps people that are coming from that place is a deeper dive for them to reset. And then also the following weeks, the half-life is more, I would say, offering more grace and less shame, because the shame is what keeps us hooked. When we're shameful, we want to get rid of the shame. So we're going to drink some more, but then we're shameful again. So it's a perpetuating cycle of shame. And when you're able to not have shame and not connect your consumption with negative behaviors, right? If you're constantly drinking, there's room for improvement, right? If you drink once or every month, once at whatever you're doing, whatever your thing is, then go live your life and don't judge yourself so hard, right? But if it's ruining your life, you don't want to do it anymore, then there are ways to break that cycle, right?
Wow.
Certain doses, high doses or meso to macro doses, what you're essentially doing, technically, right? If you're doing half of a gram for 5 days in a row, that's an extended meso dose, basically. You're like meso, right? So you're doing over time, but still in your body, it's almost like you're doing close to 3 grams or in a short period of time, right? What I have people do, if they're afraid to start with a macro dose, is to do 1 to 2 grams every weekend or every other weekend. And that's kind of give a bigger, just to reset enough, right? Some people want to get high, and that's okay. There's no shame with an altered state. Use it for your benefit, though.
100%. Yeah.
Work with that state, not just shut, but work with what's being brought to your attention. And then this is an integration afterwards. So I'm working with people who are active alcoholics, who don't want to drink fast, but maybe don't want to constantly get fully sober. I'm working with people who have a ton of different addictions: sugar, nicotine, could be cannabis. So I'm working with all of these people. These are all of my challenges also. I also work with terminally ill clients that are facing terminal cancer diagnoses, people that have severe trauma, severe CPTSD. And every one of these people, there's a unique approach to the way they are addressing this work. It's very specific about where they come from, what their overwhelm is, what their, all these things, everything plays a piece into how this process starts. So
Sure. Well, as long as I have you here, I wanted to, I'm trying to be real as much as possible these days. I feel like I've combated I like to call it alcohol use disorder. It was totally just mirrored what my life was for that moment, and escaping constantly, masking, all of those things. I've done a ton of work to uncover some really suppressed deep wounds that, all of the shoving that we our whole lives. I have a nicotine problem. And to be fair with you, I have not attempted to quit. I'm not there yet, because I'm still celebrating my sobriety.
okay.
But it's that darn little vape, it's not, and it's just so handy. It's like my baby blanket, my security blanket.
And very well.
But it kind of scares the crap out of me. I would love to be done with it. But, I'm sitting here going, is this, maybe I should just try first. And I think it's all about having to be ready, especially with alcohol. I had to know, this is not working for me. I feel like I'm going to fucking die. I need help. And I think that's when you meet the medicine halfway, and it works with you to show you and help you understand. with this nicotine thing, it's more just like this like dirty little habit that I don't really, it's not messing with my life in insane ways.
It's back here. It's like a
Yes.
little shameful piece that
Yeah.
not useful to you. It doesn't serve you.
No.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not expecting you to cure me of my nicotine habit, but is there any sort of conversation you can have? Or let's, I would like to use medicine to combat that. And I'd like to just hear, for me, I just wanted to point out, like with alcohol, before the microdosing and before I was able to quit, I had this thought that like alcohol in one hand is all I have. It's my best friend. I'm going through divorce. This is, and then at the same time, I knew it was killing me. But I was able to drop it. And yeah, I'd like to kind of like do the same sort of thing with the nicotine, but I'd like to just hear you speak on it if there's anything you have to say.
Yeah. I actually smoked cigarettes since I was 13 years old, since 1983.
Damn.
I had a lot of physical violence in my life, psychological and emotional violence and trauma. And so literally whatever I could use to soothe myself, I had no executive function, no executive skills, like nothing to cope and function normally like a human being would.
Sure.
So I went to all the things, and these were always available substances. What I found interesting was that when I was working on myself, and I would say probably I was vaping nicotine. I stopped cigarettes, I think, what is it, in 2017, I think, and went to vape nicotine, and went from, 28 milligrams down to like 3 milligrams of nicotine in the liquid, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was free, but it's the muscle memory of the hand and mouth, like soothing and all this oral fixation thing. And what I found interesting was that when I started working with mushrooms and then sitting with what was really being brought to my awareness or my consciousness, and I felt like I did this one journey. It was maybe, I don't know, I'm usually doing the macrodosing back in that time, 3.5 grams. And I had this one journey, and the mushrooms were just like, you don't need this anymore. You can walk away from this. And that was the easiest thing that I've ever quit. Sugar's the hardest by far. Sugar's like the number. Nicotine was just, I had the realization that I don't need this anymore. And I was sick of constantly having to go get the vape stuff, and then my battery would die, or then that little filter thing happen, or something would happen to the device. And I was constantly paranoid about this device.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't be able to get that fix. And I said, you know what? This feels gross. I don't want to be caught in some type of thing that makes me do something.
Yeah.
Anything except for water, right? And food. Those are the only things that I want to actually need, that I'm going to hang on to and cling to, because those are life sustaining, right? I don't want any kind of thing that isn't sustaining my life to have that type of hold on me ever again. Never again. I'm not that person. And it was literally, I felt like the next morning I woke up and it was just a decision. I said, you know what? I don't need to do this anymore.
You're right.
That easy. And there might have been a couple of days where I felt kind of tense, a little anxious. And I really leaned into good food and a lot of exercise and rest and tons of water. And within 3 to 4 days, that major gripping, that hard period was done. And because I titrated down my nicotine dose at milligrams, there wasn't that much of a withdrawal to begin with. It's the action. So replacing that with other things, really.
It really is. Well, thank you for that. I think it's something where I really just have to put my big girl pants on and do it. But I love the tips and tricks, because I want to set myself up for success. I like the idea of going out of town for the weekend, like outside, or, just changing the scenery, I guess. And, but it is such a habit thing. And then, it's so annoying when you can't find the thing. And how embarrassing. It's like these little computers I feel like I'm a rarity, that at least I'm open about vaping. But yeah, not fun at all. And, but that's the reality is there are so many of us who have our little dirty things. And I think the more that we're able to talk about it and
Yeah.
normalize, then we can help each other to get over. And yeah, you're bringing me all sorts of hope. I, yeah, I would trade. I don't have the problem with sugar, but maybe that will be my next. I'll be shoving ice cream instead of the vape.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what really drives, there's a lot of behaviors that are being fed by things that are very subconscious. And so when you
Mm,
start your consciousness and raise it, and you start to understand on a deeper level the way you operate in the world, there's a lot of things that come to the surface that are opportunities, essentially. So,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that, the mushrooms really have, from the beginning of my journey, which I would say healing journey started about 3 years ago, just the amount of constant magic and that here I am, like, I didn't even really understand that microdosing could help me do anything other than laugh and feel this
Yeah.
warm little hug from the universe. But yeah, it's just expanded so many things for me spiritually and just getting to work with people now, mainly on a microdosing level. But it's just constantly hearing from people from subtle shifts of perspective to just, wow, I was able to have this hard conversation that I've been meaning to have for 4 years
Yeah.
and grew the courage to do so. I mean, there's so many different facets um, I'm preaching to the choir. I know that. So,
But listen,
okay. You would literally work with hundreds of people around the world. And is your business? Can you talk a little bit about your business? Are you so you do facilitation? So you're doing ceremonies for people. Do you have like an online presence as well, or how are you finding these folks?
they find me through referral. I'm referral only. Uh,
Wow. Okay.
Down to the point where providers, medical and mental health providers in Massachusetts are referring their clients and their patients now to me also.
That is
So
so wonderful.
who's in my own like medical practice are referring their clients and their patients. Psychologists in the area are referring treatment resistant people, and family members that I've been working with now for. I mean, I've been doing professionally work in this field since. I mean, really since 2020 officially,
Mm.
2018 without being paid. Um, but
Yeah.
really 2020 was when really things really took off in a really huge way.
Mm.
um, I've now worked with families with the dad who's in his 80s, the mom in their 70s, and their two daughters in their 40s. I work with families, all family members, and then friends referring,
Wow.
workers referring coworkers. I'm mentoring other facilitators and guides.
Mm.
I'm educating around mycology. I do host a monthly mycology support group here in Massachusetts that also
Wow.
is psychedelic networking kind of gathering for people to
Yeah.
come. I also host a weekly integration circle online that is for people working with psychedelic integration to have a place to come and transparently share, to ask questions,
Mhm.
um, just having a place for people to come. There is no community for this yet, and
Mhm.
it feels very important to provide access for people to speak about. This work is more about the sharing and making meaning of your experiences than just taking the mushrooms itself. And so,
Mhm.
it feels important. It's important to offer people a space to speak, to hear others.
Absolutely.
We are patterned beings. I feel like most of us are not really aware of how similar we all are, the way we function, the way our brains work, the way we process trauma, the way we deal with new experiences. We're all very similar. And so when you listen to somebody else expressing and explaining their situation, you're
Mhm.
making meaning from somebody else explaining their psychedelic experience. You're pulling meaning out of your own experiences, listening to someone else talk about theirs. And that's a piece that is not talked about enough in this culture, in this renaissance, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Watching people have amazing things come through for them, and they can just listen, right,
Mhm.
and apply that in some way to their own experience. So, yeah,
Right. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And, for me, I have decided that this is my life's work as well. And
Awesome.
I'm
Absolutely.
trying my darndest to just keep the conversation going at the very
Yeah.
minimum. It's just talking about experiences of healing and trying to be better people. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm curious, do you have some sort of, uh, what's your process? Do you accept um, anyone, or are there certain criteria that needs
Oh,
to be met? I want to hear
yeah.
more about that.
What's really become important that I've had to, I mean, literally, it's taken me 5 years to get to this place of understanding. In the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, it came from a place of feeling that I needed to prove myself
Mm,
because I was new and I wanted to really, show up and help whoever, right? And what it
right.
became important to look at was that um, a lot of people were looking for comfort rather than solutions. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of my screening, well, not one, but a series of questions revolves around the comfort or solutions mindset. If you're looking for comfort, psychedelics, especially mushrooms, are really not going to be something that you're going to want to work with because you're brought to the awareness of what's yours to work
Right.
with,
Yes.
what's you accept, or be
Yep.
accountable. A lot of people aren't in the place of wanting any piece part to do with any of that. They don't want accountability. They just want to feel better so they can
Mm-hmm.
go about their lives and keep whatever they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are people who, by the sound of how they speak to their suffering or their willingness to change or their willingness to evolve or their willingness to understand, these are people who, coming from the heart, realize that it's time to show up. It's time to listen. It's time to have accountability. It's time to offer compassion and find grace within yourself. It's time
Yes.
to become your own hero. No one else is going to save you. When
Mm-hmm.
those people speak, there's a very different sound to them. And I'm here to help those people wherever they are.
I love that. Wow. That was, so powerful and so true. I think, again, it's all about, it's hard work, bottom line, right? It is
Yeah,
such hard work and some of the hardest work you'll ever do.
it's incredible, and it starts with mindfulness. So my process really works with a lot of mindfulness practitioner type of stuff. I'm certified in that. I'm certified in a couple other things, but that's the foundation for this. Is an intuitive process. So we're training intuition to trust what you know, right?
Yes.
How you go up and listen to the way you start, what you start with, to what amount of dosing. People don't understand that they have the ability to understand already how and where they start. It's not for me to tell you you're going to take this strain and this amount. That's not
Mm-hmm.
my choice. You
Mm-hmm.
know what this is. I'm going to coach you and
Mm-hmm.
educate you into having agency, right, over yourself to say, okay, in that case, right, we paint a number of scenarios. What's safe? Does this sound safe if I paint this picture? Or
Mm-hmm.
does this safe if I paint this picture? And by doing these different visual envisioning sessions, we come to a lot of tangible understanding of what's safe right now and what's absolutely not safe. So a lot of people are getting, this is how in 5 years I've understood how this process is meant to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it used to be with me going, okay, macro dose, this high potency strain, all this. No, no, no. That's not
Yeah.
how it's. People are not as receptible to being blown away. There's no instant breakthrough, which is
Mm-hmm.
a piece now that is set in motion a lot of addiction around destination. They're
Mm-hmm.
seeking destination, and when they're not getting that destination, there's a lot of disappointment. There's no reason
Mm-hmm.
for that. So
Yeah.
setting the sights a little lower, a little more reasonable. Yeah.
Got you. So it really is so individual to each patient or client, right? I'm curious. Do you want to touch? I want to talk to you mycology or mycologist
Oh,
wise. Let's talk about some of your. First of all, do you say strain or variety for mushrooms?
depends on the conversation point. I mean,
Okay.
not. I mean, strains. I mean, that's the easy go-to, but they're really they're a species.
Yes.
Uh, they're a subspecies. They're a, genre. I mean, there's a lot of different terms. Strain refers more to cannabis types,
Okay.
uh, plant-based.
I
Yeah.
say variety just cause, but
Variety, variety works. Yeah.
let's talk about, different types of mushrooms. You mentioned golden teachers earlier, I think was your first large dose. And then I'm familiar, I guess, with what I would call more stronger or potent strains or varieties, such as, penis envy, steel magnolia is one of my favorites, blue albino, Jedi mindfuck. I would like to just hear from a mycologist, even if you wanted to touch on functional mushrooms as well, but just kind of talking about some of your favorites and maybe why, or any varieties or strains that, you want to touch on today.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. This is a whole podcast.
Yes.
What I've noticed I can speak from a personal and from a professional standpoint.
Wonderful.
On the mushroom varieties, and really what I've noticed with myself is that in the beginning of my work with really deep diving and doing macrodosing, golden teachers were profound for me because I am very psychic. These are very mystical and very spiritually connective variable of mushrooms, and they are for people that are already very sensitive and coming from a lot of supernatural gifts. This variety is going to blow their abilities sky high. It's it's a bit of a difficult all there. It can be a bit of a cruel teacher. It's not very kind necessarily, but the lessons are profound. And when that's happening, your consciousness is being open to hows and whys and all these connections that really make your life transformation process taking off. Really.
Okay.
When it comes to other strains, I've tried so many different strains. I've obviously several different varieties of penis envy. Steel magnolias was brutal. I thought I was being cute. 2.22 grams when I do a little mesodose. I had to California. This was a couple of years ago. Bringing my mom out here, and I had to call my wife. 10 minutes in, I already knew. I had a vision of myself. It was like there was a cartoon. I was in bed. I had my hood on, my hoodie over my face till about here, and I saw myself third person holding on to the corner of the room, being sucked out a black hole of color. And I was not ready. Yeah.
You were 10 minutes in?
10 minutes in, bam. And it was brutal. And I had to get a hold of my wife. I knew this was going to be a difficult time. I needed her in my ear. Just a little guy, just a little something to tether me, because I wasn't in a place. I wanted just to touch in to mushroom space just a little bit. I was going through a lot of really triggering visitation of a really painful area of my life. I was back. So that was a lot of pain. So I just wanted to kind of get a little bolstering. Man, I got what I needed, but it was a lot. So steel magnolias are a very potent strain. This is a strain that's great for someone who's treatment resistant, who has a lot of resistant and pushing back ability to really say no to the mushroom. That's not going to be say no to ever, ever, ever. What I did notice, I did a lot of research with a strain called psilocybin natalensis. This is a non-cubensis variable of a variety. And this is a strain that has a different type of potency. When I would take penis envy, I would get a lot of psychedelia, a lot of color, and a lot of body load, which for a lot of people that are working with PTSD and a lot of physical trauma or a lot of anxiety trauma, it will exacerbate and push them to a place that's not helpful. So penis envy for a lot of people is kind of off the limits. It doesn't offer a lot for me of spiritual connection. It's a lot of psychedelia without the mystical, philosophical connection. And so natalensis is a strain that's extremely spiritual. It's coming out of a little area of South Africa called Natal. And it is very potent, twice potency, but in a different way. What I love is that it offers minimal body experience, but really full spiritual connection.
Wow.
It's working through SSRIs. So you don't have to stop taking your SSRIs.
Oh my God.
Full effects of this mushroom.
That's insane.
It's next level. So I have a lot of people really wanting that strain. And what's tricky is that there's subspecies in this natalensis family, right? So it's psilocybin natalensis. And then in that tier, you've got natalensis from different vendors. And the research that I've done these last few years is to grow these different types and then put those up against each other with who's doing what in what faction, right? So some natalensis varieties are like the steel magnolias of the natalensis family.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Oh, like way over here, you're going to get blown away. And some are actually pretty mellow, and they're really nice for people who also treatment resistant, but want to kind of ease in without blowing their whole minds away.
Love
So
it.
Natalensis also pairs well with golden teacher. So if you're doing like, if someone wants to do like a meso or a macro experience, they're going to want to maybe have that deep drop in of Natalensis, but also some heart opening of golden teacher, more of golden teacher. So the combo, I'm watching people have just beautiful experiences where they're open and they're like they're dialed in a way that's really rich and they're loving it. And that feels to be someone who gets to sit and witness someone in that place. It's such a gift.
Sure. Yes.
And to work with them, their minds are wide open and they're able to look at things that are difficult without the reactivity. So they're the observer without being the reactionary. So yeah.
This is really kind of hitting home for me because I was, I guess, gifted, or the majority of the first year of my healing journey was purely penis envy and steel magnolia. And I felt that I shed so many layers
Good for you.
of incredibly hard healing and dealing. And I wasn't even, kind of privy to any of the spiritual side for months. So that makes a lot of sense.
But
What's that?
Jedi is very spiritual. Jedi's got heart opening, super spiritual. It's a wonderful thing.
Okay. I was going to ask any others. I have experienced Jedi before, but it's just, I'm thinking back to the beginnings of my journey, probably when I was most vulnerable and scared. But I also wanted to go back to when you did consume steel magnolia, and within 10 minutes, it was just like this. Yeah. And you had to talk with your wife. Talk to us about that. I'm a big believer in, a journey is that, just a journey. There's ups and downs. And to me, it comes in waves. But yeah, just having a simple conversation with someone who you love and can feel comforted by. Were you able, did she have to stick on the phone with you the whole time? Or was it just a moment to put you through to the next place? Or
typically for me, I'm very sensitive. And so when I take any type of, anything from a gram and above, I go way out and I go out to places that, I don't know, they're probably a version of our reality, or maybe they're not, but I don't speak the English. I speak other weird languages that don't exist, maybe, or they used to exist, or weird stuff happens. I'm a conduit. So when I connect with these layers of spirituality, and I'm already in a place that I'm vulnerable to begin with, she's a tether for me. She and I, we astral projected to each other 10 years before we met. We have a very deep spiritual connection. She's also psychic. And so she's a guide. She's actually able to guide me for a portion of time in my experience to really kind of maximize where I'm being brought to. Right. Okay. And so what she'll do is, and she's also a 24-year middle school special ed teacher. So she's a behavioral specialist. I was a kid who could have used a special ed teacher when I was growing up. Okay. Great, right? So literally, she's coaching me. She's guiding me to embrace my fears, to look at what's scary. Because even for me, I've done, I don't know how many macrodose trainings, a lot. I've done a lot of mushroom work, right? A very large amount. And my layers, I guess the layers of myself have been peeled back to such a degree that I'm still very raw. When I take mushrooms, I'm wide open, right? When I have someone like my wife who knows me and who knows what my opportunities are when they arise, she gently kind of just redirects me back into that again. Okay. And it's great. And I'm able to do this. I mean, I'm certainly able to do this work on my own, which I've done a lot of my journeys by myself. I listen to music, and I let the music is essentially my shepherding me further in. I've also discovered that when you're working with music and color and images, such as animated fractals, these are tools of opening consciousness to a massive degree. And so a lot of my work is in this context of really just diving deeply into whatever's being presented and just like racing in to find and discover and unveil, right? When I was working with steel magnolias, what I'm constantly brought to the awareness of on high doses is that this work is going to make me famous. And I had for a long time imposter syndrome. And I didn't ask for this. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be known for this. I don't want to get in trouble. No one's going to believe me. All these things I'm sharing. So I'm brought to the awareness of this work in the midst of big doses or doses like heavy duty, steel magnolias, I'm brought to what my now work is, right? Because our work is, if we're doing it correctly, we're on a spiral. We're going up with our evolutionary offerings, right, of work and growth. So in the beginning, it was, I'm shameful because I'm an alcoholic. Well, I don't have that conversation anymore, right? I'm not an alcoholic anymore, and I don't have any shame. So now my work is, I'm safe. I'm not afraid. It's okay to be famous. I am not an imposter. These are, my mantras, my self-talk, my self-inner narrative is very different now. And so because of being essentially broken by steel magnolias and brought out, sucked out the tie-dye portal that I was pulled out of.
Yeah.
Right. And my wife is like, hey, you know who you are. Embrace yourself. You're okay here. You're meant to be here. You're right on time. She's speaking mantras to me, mantras of empowerment and reassurance for a minute of time. Usually the come up hour or two for me sometimes can be challenging. And then I'm off and running. Now I'm playing, I'm having a good time. I'm working with what's being brought to my awareness. And so this is ways that for a lot of people that are challenged at the beginning, awesome to have empowerment for them to really find their own courage and to remember, right, to be reconnected with their truth.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough. I mean, I was just talking with a client the other day, explaining like I've had a handful of very profound journeys. Each one of those involved seeing the dark just as much as it involved seeing the light.
That's right.
I kind of, maybe a good segue, I was going to ask, I had a very similar experience when I sat with DMT 5-MeO for the first time. It went dark, and then I ended up being held by the universe like Simba. I was going to say, have you sat with other medicines or any that you choose to speak about?
I do actually. So I also work with LSD because I'm actually in the process of a lot of deep research with LSD. Both of these medicines I've used since I was 15 years old. And when I'm brought back to now in my future, or in my present and also future, is there's a synergy between the two based upon the origin. LSD is also fungal, technically, right? It's coming out of Claviceps purpurea.
I get so many questions on that. While we have you, can you describe exactly what Yes, please.
Yeah. So here's the last couple of years, mushrooms have told me, here's what we've shown you. We've shown you what you have to see. So you know what this is now. And so just naturally, the last couple of years has been now directed towards more LSD work with microdosing LSD. And what I've learned, the theory that's been brought to my awareness is that mushrooms are by origin targeting our lower chakras from our heart to our root because they're dark. So they're targeting shadow elements of ourselves and inner child elements and ancestral foundational elements of our healing and our understanding. Mushrooms work with LSD because LSD, ergo fungus from Claviceps purpurea, grown in the sun, and it's targeting heart to crown chakra.
Wow.
So my clients and myself reach a plateau with mushrooms and then start using microdoses of LSD to push their growth through the roof. It's unbelievable. Cognition, creativity. It's so exciting to see. And for me personally, when I'm working with these messages that mushrooms have left me, all this ineffable, not being able to understand what the hell I've just seen in all these visions and all these journeys. Essentially, the picture that I can paint is that mushrooms gave me these beautiful mylar balloons of wisdom, left them in a vaulted ceiling that I couldn't access. LSD is the strings to these balloons of wisdom that I can now pull down and articulate with agency. What is happening? Because my consciousness is blown wide open, I live in high consciousness now. I don't need psychedelics. I don't need any type of psychedelics to be coming from this space of articulation and understanding. So what LSD has really done is to blow my wisdom through the roof. I'm watching my clients who have done great work with microdosing of mushrooms or even macro or mesodosing. But what LSD has done is really give them further access, continue their growth, continued their healing, allowed them to have more agency to speak. So it's really targeting throat, third eye, chakras. So
is this strictly with microdosing LSD? or are they doing larger doses to access these?
You certainly can.
Yeah.
LSD is a very lengthy experience, between 10 and 17 hours roughly of a journey if you're doing full amounts. But you don't need to do full amounts to have the access. So a lot of people are doing essentially, let me see if I have one of them. No, I don't have any right now. It's a tiny little bottle. I make tinctures basically.
Sure. Yep. I did microdose, and it was about a week later. I was like, damn it, that was vodka. I was consuming in the tincture.
I use water.
But you
Yeah.
do? Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't give myself a hard time, but
Nothing
personally, I don't know why. And I can probably count on one hand my experiences with LSD, but I have not had, it's very mild for me. I don't know if I'm just more sensitive to psilocybin and other plant medicines, but for whatever reason, I have not hit a breakthrough or anything with LSD.
So LSD is going to be different in different product. Its presentation is going to feel different. So blotter, as opposed to liquid, is going to have a different. So the refinement process of those is also going to affect the way that it comes through for you.
Okay. So what do you think is, I've seen it in the gel tabs and the paper.
Those are tricky. Microdosing those it's a bit of a pain in the ass. The paper is easy to use, but it feels good, but the liquid is really like where it's.
I got you. Okay.
More refined. Yeah.
I see. So LSD and psilocybin are kind of your two main callings, I guess. Nice. Well, let's see here. I wanted to take a minute and call out or help people find you. What is the best way to do so? How can people get in touch with you, Michou?
You can type my name into Google, and there's a lot of information.
All right.
You're welcome to look at podcasts. I've contributed quite a bit to psychedelic community and psychedelic space with articles, podcasts. There's my website, there's LinkedIn, there's my third wave facilitator listing. There are a bunch of different things. I think what's cool and what people are sharing with me is that they appreciate being able to kind of have a bit of an overview by looking through some of my contributions to get an idea of how I show up here, what I speak to, what I work with. My website does offer a place that you can reach out and book a time to connect for a conversation. I also offer through my website the ability to book an integration session or to book a mycology session for mycology education or support.
Wow.
It really depends on what you're looking for. The internet, Google is probably the best way to find me.
Gotcha. Just while you're here, can you give us your domain to your personal website?
It's just MichouOlivera.com.
Wow, beautiful.
Facebook is good. There's some varied things there. Instagram at Michou413 is documenting my first year to 2 years of working with mushrooms and evolving into today. It's been limiting for me now because it doesn't really allow you to speak or write very at length. So it really minimizes my ability to speak to these topics in this work. So I'm minimally using Instagram now to kind of just post what I'm working with as far as events.
Yeah. Do you have any speaking engagements like coming up or anything, any conferences you'll be at sharing your wisdom?
Past conference, I actually attended one in July of this year. I was invited to 9, but I chose to just do one. Because it's on local stuff. Yeah, the work that I'm doing is apparently no one's doing this work, and no one's reached these understandings of this research with the different the different species types of mushrooms and their effects and what they're targeting and what they're offering assistance for, and as well as the LSD piece that really fits in with mushrooms. Apparently no one's doing this work, so I'm
wow. Well, I might be jumping on board with you.
Come and see. It's really important to learn what strains are offering what and to target these offerings for people that are working with various challenges. This is what's helping for people to really have access in the way that feels safe to them and that they can continue. Ultimately, it becomes important to let people build a relationship with mushrooms that doesn't terrify them so they can have longevity there.
Yeah. And just you're in Massachusetts. Where are you legally there? Has there been any deprioritization or decriminalization?
Yes. In fact, I have been instrumental on helping several cities across our state lower the prioritization of criminalization. I was on the board of directors for a group of people for a number of years that were instrumental. That group no longer exists, but the work was really great. And what we did was gain the ability to cultivate, gift, and consume entheogens in these cities in our state. And then also, right now we have question number 4, which is a ballot question that offers the therapeutic access to plant-based psychedelics and the cultivation in a 12 by 12 foot room of mushrooms, which is lovely. And I would love to see pass. So this is question number 4. Say yes to 4, really?
Yes to 4 in Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts. Please register to vote, and please vote for the access of people who are seeking to help themselves in ways that actually offer the ability to heal and to come home to yourself in ways that are safe and sustainable.
Wow. Well, I just commend you so much. First of all, just it's so inspiring for me to hear, what you were so vulnerable and needed so much help and literally facing homelessness. And then
being homeless.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But we are vulnerable until we're able to see what our opportunities are. It's all an opportunity. It's a trick, actually. Our vulnerability actually our strength.
Yeah. And I appreciate you and you sharing all of this. It's been a phenomenal conversation, at least for me. And I am so excited to keep in the loop with you. I want to check out, I'm going to do a deeper dive and check you out more, but everything that you're doing is so fabulous. And thank you just for taking risks and ultimately just, doing what your heart is telling you and leading you to do. So
that's all we can do. And I applaud your bravery too for doing what you're doing up in Minnesota. It takes a lot of courage to branch out and to be a pioneer in this. And I have a lot of respect for what you're doing. And I would happily talk with you anytime, on camera, off camera, whatever you like, and answer more questions for you. You're also welcome to join my group anytime. It's a lot of between 10 and 15 women. A lot of them are coming back every week. These are a lot of clients that I've already been working with for over a year. You're welcome to come anytime.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Michou. I appreciate you. This has been lovely, fantastic, and thank you. You're
very welcome.
I'll be in touch. For more information, please visit mindsonmushrooms.com. Thank you for joining the journey.